Okay, one of the ways that we can see how important our attentional system is for everyday functioning is to look at some of the deficits occur with patients who have impaired attentional systems. So one such set of patients are those that are diagnosed with what's called hemispatial neglect. So this is where you have a disorder of visual attention in which stimuli or parts of stimuli presented to the side opposite the brain damage are undetected and not responded to. So this typically occurs following damage to the right cerebral hemisphere and then leads to patients neglecting information and stimuli that's presented on the left side of space. And it's a complicated syndrome that can present in different forms. You can have a body-centered form where patients will neglect the left side of their own personal space, so relative to their own reference and their own view, or you can have an object-centered version of this where patients will neglect the left side of objects. So a common way of testing neglect is through something known as a line bisection task. So basically on here you give somebody a horizontal line and you ask them to put a line through the center of this. So mark a line right through the center, and on this example a healthy control would put something right through the middle, whereas a patient with neglect would put something that is biased towards the right hand side. So effectively for them, when they're looking at this horizontal line, they're ignoring much of the elements that are on the far left hand side of this, and to them where they put that line appears like it's the middle. Now it's really important in these that they have appropriate physical function and visual processing is intact. The issue is being able to draw their attentional spotlight towards this left side of space. You can see some other examples of how this might manifest. So on the top left here we have a patient that has obviously neglected or left half of their dinner. There's another patient in the top right who's only shaved half of his face. In the bottom left we see somebody attempting to draw a clock, as again left out all of the numbers on the left hand side, and in the bottom right somebody drawing, making a copy of a cat. So there's some features. We've got the top left ear is present there, but the majority of information on the left has been neglected. There was also a famous case of a Italian patient with neglect who was asked to recollect. So imagine themselves standing in the square, so this main Piazza del Duomo in Milan, and they were asked to imagine standing in a particular orientation and describing everything that they could see. And they would neglect everything that was on the left-hand side of the square. But then if you ask the same patient to turn yourself around and imagine standing in the other location facing the different direction, in that case they then could report the information that was appearing in that particular region of the square. So it's not that they don't have the knowledge that's there, but when they're creating this mental representation, even then they're ignoring this information that's appearing on one side of their imagination. Another task that you might use is a sort of cancellation task. So you would ask a patient here to cross out or circle all of the stars, and in a severe case they've just indicated these ones that are on the far right hand side. They're just not able to draw their attention towards the left side of the visual space. And again we've got here some eye tracking data that comes from the visual fixations. So each red circle on here is a visual fixation, and the yellow lines are showing saccades of where somebody's eye fixations move from one to the next. And again in this task a neglect patient has purely directed their vision to the right hand side of the screen. So in the next video I'm going to show you a small illustration of a case study with a patient with hemispatial neglect.
one's middle often isn't it the middle.
The middle is the right.
I used to always eat on my right side, but not on the left side. Just leave that.
Give her a dinner plate and she'd only eat the vegetables and leave the meat, which is disappointing because I was a cook.
So if he starts a picture, it can not fit in the paper if he gets over to the left because he hasn't left enough room.
Spatial neglect is a syndrome, that is signs and symptoms that patients most frequently have after stroke, but sometimes in forms of Alzheimer's disease, where they ignore one side of space. So people, objects and sounds on one side tend to get ignored, and the patients who have it tend to be drawn to the other side. And this can extend to things like the food on the plate in front of them. They'll only eat food on this side and then say they're finished. It may extend to parts of their own body, so when trying to shave, they may only shave this side of the face and miss out this side, put makeup on.
So you can only see from across there?
Yeah, from there to there. That's my vision.
So what's going on in the other half?
Nothing.
There's nothing at all?
Because often I've come up from this side to give you something.
Anybody can creep up my left, I wouldn't know they were there.
He doesn't see anything.
I can't sense them.
So if you just look at me and just point at the finger that moves, okay? Or say both if both. Tell me which finger moves.
First one.
Okay.
That one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look at me.
That one.
Okay. Look at me.
That one. That one. That one. That one. That one.
Great. That's fine. They tend not to describe the condition, to be honest. One of the most intriguing things about it is that this sort of loss of attention for one side of space doesn't leave a great gaping hole. And that's why it's very useful to contrast it when someone's got what's called a hemianopia, which is a primary sensory deficit. They can't see that side of things, and they know they can't see it, so they're constantly moving their heads like that. Whereas patients with neglect are unaware of their deficit, that they're not even aware that they're missing something, because their sort of imagination of space has gone on that side too.
Does he have a name?
I don't know, I haven't thought of one.
I can stand right next to you, can't I? You can't sense one there.
No, you can't.
If you told her to look, she'd actually look around that way, like that, right round on the right-hand side and then come back to central. She wouldn't actually think about coming and looking round to the left as well.
People often say, why don't you just tell them to look to the left? And relatives can be very frustrated about this too. And I think you've got to be aware that the process of attention and these higher visual areas are involved in the representation of space rather than just seeing things where they are. See the lines there?
Split them in the middle.
Yeah, that's one end, that's the other end. Show me where the middle is. Mark the middle for me.
I was only looking at a line from there to there. It's in the middle of my line, not the middle of your line.
So the first time I saw you, that's where you were marking the centre of the line as well. Patients realise something's wrong when things are pointed out to them over and over and over again. So in a way, I think for them it's slightly abstract, that they know that there's some problem on the left-hand side and they're not aware of that problem, but they know everybody's telling them they have to do something more on the left. And so they use strategies and things like that to try and overcome the problem without really being able to appreciate it in its fullness.
I remember getting those word search books, and I remember it was only one side was always ever filled in. Yeah, and then slowly she got better and better at it, because I used to say to her, Colby, you know, I'm not getting value for money here, you're only doing half the page. Yeah, so slowly she learned that, yeah, do the left side first and then come back to the right.
Some people have it soon after their stroke, and it gets better within a few weeks. And then another group of people have it long term and learn strategies to overcome it. So if you probe deeply, they still have problems with attention. Even that bias may go away, but they still have deep problems when trying to find things, and then they also tend not to remember where things are after they've looked at them. They have poor working memory for space as well. So a lot of these deficits don't recover, although people can use strategies to overcome them.
Give that a pleat if they find you. That's good.